The story was set in the isolated Inuit hamlet of Pangnirtung, Canada. It was summer there, which meant there was no night. The sun stayed up 24/7. 6 years earlier, Micah and her father had gone out hunting on the icy Arctic Sea, and her father had taught her how to use his rifle. Time jumped 6 years later. It was still summer, and the sun still never set. Micah was now a teenage Inuit girl. She was rebellious and hated her town. She believed life there was boring and tried hard to save money so she could leave for the south. Her crew included her best friend Jessie. There was also the tough-talking, bragging Uki, and the more easygoing Lena. Micah also had a little sister, Asiva, who followed her everywhere like a shadow. The girls were extremely bored. All the adults in town were busy preparing for the big community dance. No one was watching the kids. Micah suggested stealing her father's boat and taking his rifle to go hunting on the tundra. The girls excitedly took off and messed around across the vast Arctic landscape. Micah raised the rifle and aimed at some cans in the distance. But just as she was about to fire, a massive polar bear appeared in her sight. The girls immediately panicked. The polar bear kept getting closer. Suddenly, Uki fired and hit the bear. Just when they thought the danger had passed, they heard another terrifying roar. The polar bear stood up again and charged toward them. Not far away, Micah's sister Asiva froze in fear. Uki tried to shoot again, but she was so nervous that she couldn't load a bullet properly. The polar bear was already within reach, and Asiva was in grave danger. At the critical moment, Micah pushed Uki aside, grabbed the rifle, quickly loaded a bullet, and fired at the bear's head just as it tackled Asiva. Micah rushed to check her sister. Luckily, Asiva was unharmed. The girls hurried away from the scene, but they didn't know the polar bear wasn't dead. A slimy tentacle emerged from its eye and burrowed into the ground. When they returned to town, they told the story to their friends. Local officer Lefebvre walked past and saw all the kids gathered, so he asked what they were doing. The kids remained silent. They knew they had stolen a boat, taken a rifle, and shot a protected animal. If the police found out, they would be in serious trouble. Meanwhile, at the harbor, a parasite had already arrived. A fisherman working there had no idea danger was near. Suddenly, a rope on the ground tightened. It looped around his ankle and he was dragged straight into the water. Meanwhile, Uki had split off from the others and returned to the scene. She was shocked to find that the polar bear's body was gone. Curious, Uki began searching the area. She soon saw a wild deer dragging a human corpse. The corpse was the fisherman who had been attacked earlier. Instead of being terrified, Uki actually chose to follow the deer. She followed it across the tundra and eventually came upon a massive fleshy mass. She also saw the missing polar bear there. The huge lump was covered in tentacles and clearly was not something from Earth. It was obvious that this creature was what had brought the polar bear back to life. While Uki was staring in shock, a polar fox suddenly attacked her from behind, its mouth stretching open to reveal disgusting tentacles. Uki quickly pulled a small knife from her waist and stabbed the fox, killing it instantly. She threw the body aside and hurried to escape. But shortly after she left, the infected polar bear and the deer arrived. The bear extended a tentacle from its eye, saw that the fox was completely dead, and let out a furious roar. When Uki returned to town, she told her friends everything she had seen, but of course none of them believed her. What they didn't know was that the vengeful polar bear had already followed them into town. The first victim was Officer Lefebvre. He was shocked to see a polar bear here and tried to chase it away, but he didn't know this was a mutated polar bear. Instead of leaving, it charged at him. The parasite entered his body. Meanwhile, Uki was still trying to explain everything to her friends when the now fully mutated Lefebvre stumbled into the room. His twisted and distorted face made it clear something was terribly wrong. The monster's target was obvious. It headed straight toward Uki. A disgusting tentacle slid out from its palm. Everyone in the room screamed and ran in panic. Uki reacted just in time and sprinted up the stairs, but the monster chased her in a disturbing, unnatural way. Uki rushed into a bedroom and used a bed to block the door, but she underestimated the monster's strength. The door began to break apart. Realizing she had no choice, Uki climbed out of the window and jumped onto a vehicle below just before the monster reached her. Micah seized the moment, approached the monster from behind, and launched a surprise attack. They managed to take it down. Micah quickly grabbed Uki and rushed to regroup with the others. But nearly all the adults in town were at a social dance. Most of the people left in town were just kids. While everyone panicked, Micah suddenly remembered that her sister Asiva was still at home. Sure enough, the parasite-infected fisherman had already entered the house. Asiva froze when she saw the monstrous figure, dropping her candy on the floor. The creature slowly approached, backing her into a corner. A slimy tentacle reached toward her. At the critical moment, Micah rushed in and pulled Asiva away from the brink of death. She told the others to take Asiva and run, while she stayed behind to delay the monster. Once they escaped safely, Micah slipped into a bedroom and escaped through the window herself. But as soon as she reached the road, the monster came after her again. On the way, they ran into the mutated Officer Lefebvre. In a panic, they hid inside a nearby shipping container. But the monsters didn't seem willing to leave. They climbed on top of the container and slammed on it repeatedly. Everyone held their breath in fear. Soon, the monsters stopped attacking and simply stood guard outside the door, waiting for them to come out. Taking advantage of the moment, Micah quickly called her parents for help, but their phones were left on the side, so they didn't hear anything. They then tried calling the police. The call went through and an officer arrived quickly, but as soon as he got out of the car, he was attacked by the monster. Their last hope for rescue disappeared, but staying inside wasn't a solution either, so they came up with a plan to fight back. Micah grabbed an iron rod, while Uki used a piece of clothing to lure the monster. As expected, the monster was attracted by the moving cloth. Micah took the chance and struck the monster in the face with the iron rod. The three girls rushed out of the container while the others stayed inside. Their goal wasn't to run away, but to raid Uki's shed, which was basically a small armory. They grabbed traditional Inuit weapons, like a harpoon and an ulu knife. Micah held onto her rifle. They even used knowledge from horror movies like The Thing. They knew they had to find a weak point. Once everything was ready, the three of them headed out with confidence. But when they returned, the two monsters were nowhere to be found. They weren't willing to let it go and began searching the area. Soon, they heard something moving near a small cabin. They told Jesse to climb up with a fishing net to check, but it turned out to be just a dog. As soon as Jesse relaxed, a monster suddenly attacked her. The others rushed to help. Jesse and the monster became tangled together in the fishing net. Without hesitation, Uki grabbed the ulu knife and slashed the monster hard. They successfully killed one of the monsters. At that moment, another boy rode his bike back into town. When he learned about the monsters and their fight, he immediately joined them. To lure out the last monster, Uki volunteered to act as bait. Micah lay in the distance with the rifle, ready to shoot at any moment. The plan worked. The monster soon appeared, but at the crucial moment, Micah messed up and missed several shots. Fortunately, they had a backup plan. They had set a trap on the ground earlier. Once the monster stepped into the right spot, the boy rode forward and pulled the rope tight with his bike. But to their shock, the monster extended a tentacle and bit through the rope, then charged straight toward Uki. Uki saw this and immediately ran. In her panic, she crawled under a nearby house. The space was extremely tight, and she could only move forward on her stomach. But this narrow space worked in the monster's favor. Micah hurried to the other end of the crawl space to pull her out. However, the exit was too small, and Uki struggled to get through. Soon, the monster caught up and extended a tentacle to grab Uki's leg. Fortunately, their two other friends arrived in time and forcefully pulled Uki out of the opening, but the monster disappeared. Micah told the boy to stay and take care of Uki, while she took Jesse to search for the creature. They soon found signs of the monster on the ground. It was heading straight toward Micah's house, so they followed the trail and arrived there. But they didn't see the monster. Instead, they saw Micah's father, Tony, returning home from the social dance. Just then, Tony noticed a bloody piece of clothing on the floor. Before he could figure out what was happening, the monster suddenly pounced on him from the side. Micah tried to help, but she was knocked back by a powerful hit. Luckily, she wasn't badly hurt. She turned and saw the monster pinning down her father, its tentacle reaching out to infect him. At the same time, more parasites began crawling into the house through the door cracks and windows. Jesse quickly pulled Micah out from under a cabinet where she had fallen. As Tony was moments away from being infected, Micah grabbed the harpoon from the floor and drove it into the monster. Then she picked up the ulu knife and delivered a final strike. The creature was finally defeated. As it collapsed, the tentacles crawling into the house instantly lost their life. The parasite's main source retreated in a flash of bright light and fled somewhere far away. It became clear that they hadn't simply killed a few monsters. They had fought off an alien species attempting to invade Earth.